Hi everyone, this is Laura and Melanie from A Creatively Crafted Life. Welcome back to our YouTube channel and another card in our Christmas card series in 2017. So today we're going to go through this Christmas card using some Spellbinders stamps. That's right, Spellbinders does have stamps. But first of all, we're going to start off with this Merry Christmas from, I think it was Simon Says Stamp, although it could be somebody else. But anyways, we'll have the description of all the supplies in below, as well as on our website. I'm also using some different kind of cardstock today. It's Bristol cardstock.
So why Bristol? Why not the standard stuff that you usually use?
So Bristol cardstock has a little bit of a coating on it, which is very helpful when adding things like extra water. So while we're not like full-blown watercoloring here, we are going to add some water to the image. And this just gives a little bit more playtime and doesn't, break down as quickly as regular cardstock.
So it's not quite watercolor paper, but it does have some of those elements, right?
It's not quite as absorbable as watercolor paper, but it does give you a little bit of playtime, which is nice. Because otherwise, if you just use regular cardstock, it just sucks up the moisture and you can't move anything around.
So with the red, you're using red ink here. How many times did you have to re-ink that?
I don't know. I didn't count. I probably did it at least twice, maybe more. That's the great thing of using a stamp positioning tool. So I have a MISTI, but there are other stamp positioning tools out there. So, of course, you can use whatever you have. I am making a longer card, so not your standard A2. This is going to be the size like more like an 8.5 by an 8.5, probably by 4 1/4 size. I didn't actually measure it. I just kind of made sure it fit in the envelope that I had. And I am using distress markers again. But this time what I'm doing is I'm actually doing what they call selective coloring. So I'm only coloring certain parts of the image with certain colors. So I'm coloring the berries here. And then I'm going in with some of the green now and shading that in. Now, I don't know if you've seen any of the Spellbinders stamps, but what really is cool about them is they have a texture on them so that even when you just stamp, they already give a variegation in color. So it already looks like you've done all your shading without actually having to know how to do any shading.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really cool.
And that's the actual texture on the stamp that creates that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're like almost little dots. You can see on the image there how that looks. That's kind of how it stamps, of course, depending on your color. See? Yeah. All we've done is just use the marker. So now I'm just going in with a fine paintbrush and just a little bit of water. You don't want to super saturate this because, again, it's not watercolor cardstock.
Are you still using so you're using the same color that's already on there and just blending it out?
Yes, I'm not adding any new color.
So it's just the distress markers?
It's just the distress marker and then a little bit of water on the paintbrush just to kind of make the image look a little more watercolor-ish. And with the wonders of modern technology, I've already watercolored everything. And I'm just going to trim this down using my Caterpillar. And this is a new trimmer for me. I think I bought this. When did we go to the Scrapbook Expo? Back in March?
Yeah, I think it was earlier this year.
Yeah, and I picked this up. So I'm really enjoying it. So what I found after I had watercolored was that I still wanted to have a little bit more variation. Because I added water and blurred out the edges, I lost some of that definition that the stamp gives. And so what's really cool with an ink medium is you can always go over top of it with pencil crayons. So these are actually Spectrum Color Blend, I believe. Mm-hmm. You could use your Prismacolors if you have those. You could even use Crayola if that's what you have on hand. And all I'm doing is just darkening some of the darker areas that I want to look a little bit more shaded. Have you ever mixed media before?
Not like this, no.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It gives you a little bit of definition and a little bit more control. Some people are very hesitant to do watercolor because it's a little bit of a looser technique.
I like the watercolor. I've just never done like the pencil over it. I don't actually think I've used pencil on anything. I tend to stick to the inks and the watercolors and the markers. So I don't think I have pencils. I just don't think I've used them for anything.
It's fun. I mean, I remember growing up that only ever having pencil crayons.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like to get markers was a big deal.
Right.
And so, who wants to use pencil crayons? But it's something I've started using again over the last few years. Now, there was a few spots. I guess I should have stamped it 4 times instead of 3.
Well, red's always a hard color, which is why I asked, because, it's a very difficult color in anything, really, to get. Like, if you, I know, like, when you're baking or if you're decorating cakes, to get that red in there is really difficult.
And it bleeds super easy, too. So I did have a few little bits of splotchiness. The other thing is this is quite a large stamp, quite a large detailed stamp. So to get an even layer of ink across the whole image is another issue. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking a red pencil and just kind of filling in some of those areas that look a little bit less than perfect, for lack of a better word.
So you did the same to the top and to the bottom holly, right?
Yes, exactly the same. Just went over it with pencil, just to kind of, bring out the shading a little bit more.
Now what's in the magic bottle?
This is Heidi Swapp Colorshine. It's a spray mist. I don't like to actually use it as a spray. I like to take the lid off and then just kind of tap it on, and it just adds some gold sparkle to the card. And it's a Christmas card, so you need to have some sort of shine somewhere, right? And then I just made a basic card out of red cardstock. I'm just adhering the panel. So it's a pretty simple card. I mean, most of the thought process is already done for you as far as the painting goes. It tells you where the dark should be and where not. I don't know why I had to flip over the paper, but I felt the need to do so. So when I had stamped and colored the initial images, I had also done a practice image earlier just to see how things would go, and I liked the way it was, so I thought I'd fussy cut it out and make a second card. So I am using a Season's Greetings dies from Elizabeth Crafts, and it's this beautiful scripty die, lots of details.
I like that one. They have quite a few of those sentiments, right? I think I have like the happy birthday one.
Yeah, and I think they have Merry Christmas and maybe a couple others. What's nice about it is it fills up a card really quickly.
Right, and those are nice if you like stack them or if you do them on like the foam.
Oh, right, to give them some dimension.
Yeah, to give it dimension, it looks really nice.
Yeah, and it's an elegant looking thing, and it's super easy, right? You just run it through your die cut machine and you're done. So you'll notice that I took some white cardstock, I think it was white cardstock, and then attached some double-sided tape on the back, and that's just because when we run this through, because it's such a detailed die, it will already have adhesive on the back, and I don't have to sit there and apply a whole bunch of glue to the back and try and get it to work. So it's a little difficult to tell exactly what I am doing here, but I've actually taken a white cardstock panel and I've cut out the die, and what I'm doing now is putting the negative pieces back onto the cardstock panel. So I'm actually filling in and gluing down the inner bits of the die. So everything that you would normally think you would discard, I'm putting it on the cardstock panel. And you're going, why are you doing that? I can see Laura's looking at me very strangely.
You're removing so you're sticking it back on there, right? You're taping, gluing, whatever.
The Season's Greetings itself still is not attached.
Right.
But all the little negative pieces, I'm removing the adhesive backing and gluing those down. So when I'm finished, if I pull up the Season's Greetings or whatever, it will, those will remain. And basically what I'm going to do is we're going to run this through the die cut machine with an embossing folder, and I want all the negative bits to have the die embossed images. It'll be easier when you look at the still photos to see exactly what I'm doing, but there is some method to my madness. And basically it's a little bit tedious and time consuming, but I think having that seamless look to it when it's finished looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and it looks great. It ends up really looking great, but it is a lot of work, especially with a die like this that has so many intricate little pieces.
Yes. And don't have the fan on while you are doing this.
Did you have that happen?
Well, we are in Southern California, and we did film this a while ago, and it was quite warm and hot, and so I did have the fan, and things started to move, and I had mass panic. I think I threw myself across the table. No! No, I'm just kidding. I just had to shift a few things just to make sure that the air wasn't disturbing stuff. Better than what I do is have like a small container or something on your desk that you can put the little pieces in so that you don't have to worry about missing them. I can't tell you how many times I've lost the dot from an eye. What is it called? A tittle, I believe.
Oh, I hate that. That just happened to me recently.
And I've had it where I've gone, well, I guess it's not important.
I'm just drawing that in now.
Or we're just leaving it off.
The eye didn't need the dot anyway. Yeah,
I don't need to dot all my I's and cross my T's, right?
Exactly.
So that's all I'm doing here. Just peeling the backing off of the negative bits. And you can see some of them still remained in the die. So I'm just pulling that out. That's actually the ideal, right? If they remain in, it makes it easy to pull it off. You can't really see too much because I'm a little off frame, but you get the idea.
Let's just say this goes on for a little while.
So, do you got plans for Christmas?
Well, we do film these in advance, so I can't even think about Christmas right now. It's too soon, and I can't deal with it. I have to get through Halloween and Thanksgiving first, and then I can deal with Christmas. It's one holiday at a time, or my brain just cannot handle it.
Fair enough. But you do need to start making your Christmas cards in advance.
Which is why I think most people who put out videos and do their Instagram and blog posts and all of that will start doing the Christmas posts in as early as October, because people need to start planning, and it's true, right?
Yeah.
If you're making 50 cards, I mean, I know you have a ton, Melanie, that you do. You know, people don't expect a lot from me, so I probably only have about a dozen that I have to do. But I know you go through a pretty...
Yeah, actually I do about 50. So not as many as some people, but I enjoy doing it. So that's part of it. And with my family living so far away, it's just one way that I can keep in touch with them. So I do enjoy sending Christmas cards. I actually enjoy receiving Christmas cards, but
no one ever sends them anymore.
It seems to be few and far between. But I just remember as a kid, used to get tons of them, and it was so exciting to see what was in the mail. Now all I get is bills.
Those are just not as exciting.
That's for sure. Anyways, this would not be a card I would recommend that you would mass produce. The first one is much better, much simpler, but this one's a little bit more time consuming. So now that everything has been adhered, like all of the negative pieces, I'm actually going to take the season's greetings out. It's not glued down. It's just because I have all those bits in it, it's harder to remove, and it's pretty delicate. So we're just going to slowly remove it.
So does that still have the backing on it or not?
This would still have the backing on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't take it off because I knew I was going to pull it up. So basically, once this is pulled up, you just have your basic cardstock panel, and then you'll have all the negative bits glued down. So it'll look like Season's Greetings, but it's like indented.
Right.
If that makes sense. By the way, a good pair of tweezers. Everybody should have one of those. Mine broke.
Oh, no.
You can see the little yellow bit there floating around. So I may have to get another pair or figure out how to fix it. So this is the embossing folder that I'm going to use. It's called Quilted, I believe. It's, I think, from, I can't remember who it's from. Again, information will be down on the bottom. Tim Holtz has a quilted type of embossing folder out there. So anything that you have that kind of gives a similar texture will work. It does not even have to be quilting. You could do snowflakes. You could do... the idea is just to give it some interest because there's a lot of white in the background. So you do need to use your platform, and you do need to adjust it for embossing folders, and then just run that through the machine and let it do its magic. And I always just seem to double run everything through.
Do you do that with cutting too, or just with the embossing folder?
Probably more for cutting than I do with embossing folders, because the cutting, you have the intricate details.
Right.
But, usually I'm just too lazy to pull out the back. So you'll notice here I'm using a precision plate and instead of the regular plastic plate, and that is very helpful when you are die cutting detailed images. It just cuts it cleaner. So here I am just pulling out the cardstock panel that's now embossed. Now I'm going to peel the backing off of this, so that has the adhesive on it, and it is, you know, delicate, but you can still peel it fairly easily. The trickiest part now is to getting it back onto the sheet. So I could have left it in and run the whole thing through the embossing folder, so I could have just left it in, but I didn't want to have any indentations in the Season's Greetings, because when I adhere the red piece that we just cut on top, I wanted it to have a clean surface to adhere to.
So on the red piece of paper, you also put the sticky backing to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that I can, at least I think I did. I should have. If I didn't, that's what I advise. But that way it's just easier to align and just glue down right away. Now this tape that I put on here is super sticky. It's kind of a one-shot deal. So if you don't, yeah, see, I did put it on there. Thank goodness. Whew. So we just peel that all out, get rid of all the little chads, the inner bits, and you can see it's super tacky. But we have an alignment guide, right? Because we put the white one down already. It's pretty easy to align, and you just need to be careful because, again, it's very tacky. So once it's pressed down, even if it's light, it's still pretty hard to remove.
I like how you say it's easy to line it up. For someone with very shaky hands, maybe not so much.
Well, the nice thing about this is even though it's big, it's pretty compact.
Right.
Some of the other ones where the script is kind of drawn out and you pull it out, like the M kind of goes all like W-ish on you and twists and turns. This one actually at least stays fairly closely. So we just took the whole panel and then put that on a card base. Now we're taking the holly and berries from before and we're going to glue that down on the card, and it just was sticking out a little bit, so I just trimmed off the part that was extending beyond the card. I mean, obviously you could leave it on, but you would just have to use a bigger envelope.
Well, and you actually add it back on just in a different position.
Oh yeah, that's right. I totally forgot that. Yeah. So, you know, don't want to waste anything.
Right.
So that's another tip, right? You can always alter images if need be. I'm using the Ranger Enamel Accents just to add a little bit of color to the berries and give them a little bit of dimension.
And there, in this shot, you can actually see the texture from the embossing folder. And you'll be able to see it in the pictures as well, but you can see it here. You can see the texture. It really stands out.
Yeah. It does add something, right? You know? It just makes it cool. Okay, so I'm tilting this up. I don't recommend you leave your cards tilted up until this dries because they will run, or they can run.
And that's going to do it for this week's installment of our Christmas card series. As always, be sure to check the video description for a complete list of the materials and the website for additional information. Happy crafting!